Hello, everybody. It's Connie Stewart with SimplySimpleStamping.com. Thank you guys so much. I'm so glad you could join me for a new Tuesday tip video. Hey, today's tip is all about creating a really fantastic triangle pocket card, but this one has a bonus because we're going to take the pieces that we have cut off of our triangle pocket. We're going to use those to create two bonus cards. Are you intrigued? I hope so. I am excited to teach these to you. So I say we head over to my stamping table and get started.
I love cards that have a bonus card, don't you? We're going to create, this is the triangle pocket card. It's just a really fun, simple way to use up some of your designer series paper. It's going to use half a piece of designer series paper. But these triangles that we cut off, I'm going to show you how to create a couple really quick bonus cards that you can create. So are you ready to get started? We're going to talk about the supplies you need to create the card. You're going to need half a sheet of 12 by 12 designer series paper. Now I have a 12 by 12 here, but I wanted to show you Stampin' Up! Has many papers that are designed this way. So you see how they're flip-flopped from each other. This one is great for that. I'm going to cut this in half at 6 inches. I'm going to be using polished pink for my card. This is a little bit of a different size, so I want you to pay attention to it. It is 4 1/8 by 5 1/2. Yep, we had to cut off just a little bit. And that's going to help it go into that pocket a little bit easier. Now I also have a piece of basic white, 3 3/4 by 5 1/8. And to polish off my card, I've got some polished pink ribbon. This is this nice sheer ribbon. I have 20 inches of that. It's just going to dress up my card. All right, here we go. Let's do some cutting on our designer series paper. And guess what? I have a free download that goes along with today's video. And there is a diagram that's going to help you to score and cut that designer series paper. So to grab the free download, go to SimplySimpleStamping.com or look down there in the YouTube description. There's a direct link to the post because I want you to have that. Now I'm going to keep this handy. It's going to help me and you as we create the base. So let's bring our paper trimmer and our scorer in. So it tells me with the 12 inches up at the top, we want to score at 3 7/8 and 8 1/8. Oh my goodness, those eights, they drive us crazy, right? Well, good news, 3 7/8 is just in between 3 3/4 and 4. Now I want to make sure my cutting blade is out of the way. I don't want to accidentally cut. Did that the other day. All right, 3 7/8. I'm going to flip the arm out and I will go 8 1/8. All right, there we go. Now it tells me to rotate and put the 6 inches up at the top. And I want to make sure I'm about to score here. This is the top part of my envelope, my pocket. This is the bottom. So I'm actually going to make sure I am about to cut that correctly. And we're going to score, or cut. I'm going to score. We're going to score that at 1/2 an inch here at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and do some cutting. I'm going to go ahead and let the paper trimmer do the work. I'm going to set that back up at 1/2 an inch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cutting blade down to the 4-inch mark. I can see it right here. And now let me come here from the bottom, and I know you cannot see it because it's off the camera. We will take that to about the 8 1/8 inch mark. This is going to ensure I get really nice straight cuts. Now what I'm going to do, and I'm hoping I can see my score line there, I'm going to give this a notch. Do you see how I just notched and kind of mitered that end? Let me find my score line here and cut that right there. Now we're going to do our triangles. And can you see, we're just going to come from one score line down to the bottom. So this is actually very easy to do. I'm going to go ahead and give that a little fold so that I can see it. And I can put that right here in my track and the bottom of my card in the track. This is super easy to do. Line those up. There we go. And cut. That is cut number 1. Now we're going to flip it around. We're going to do that same thing here on the other side. Let's get it right. There's my fold. Fold there in the center. Line that up in the track and the corner, and we will cut. All right, I'm going to take the 2 triangles and set those aside because, of course, we're going to be using those on our bonus cards. But let's go ahead and create our triangle pocket first. I want you to use your bone folder very, very gently on this project. We don't want to crease or cause any damage to our paper. You know, designer series paper is a little more delicate. Now, either way you decide to go with the triangles is entirely up to you. But what we want to do is we're going to take our adhesive and we're going to add our first piece here. All right, that's down. Now we can add adhesive down our next end. Kind of keep that close to the bottom of the card because we don't want it to accidentally seal anything shut. All right, pocket done. Now let's do some stamping. I'm going to be using the stamp set True Beauty for this one. So I'll tell you what, we're going to start with a Granny Apple Green. And we are going to say, you are a true friend. And let's stamp that close to the top because this is actually going to peek out of our pocket. Now I'm going to, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and get some leaves. Since I've got my Granny Apple Green out, we're going to take some leaves. I'm going to stamp these. Can you see how I'm stamping them? I want the corner of that leaf stamp to be right here at the corner of my card. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rotate this around and get one more right there. All right, now I'll come in with my rich razzleberry and we can add our flower down here. There's several flowers in this stamp set. You can use whichever one is your favorite, but I'm just going to put that flower right there. Okay, one last thing, just to bring in a little bit more of the color that's in my designer series paper, some So Saffron. And this is actually a little flower from, it's supposed to go in the inside of one of the larger flowers, but you know what? It is really pretty by itself. So we're gonna add that right there. Looking good. Now, we're going to add that to our polished pink, and as you can see, that will slide perfectly inside of our card. Very nice. Now we'll simply come in with that ribbon. Are you amazed at how fast this card goes together? We're going to tie this in a really pretty bow here on the front. Just makes our pocket card look extra special. And again, this polished pink really brings out the polished pink in that cardstock that's peeking out of the top. And just like that, our pocket card is done. Now I have another pocket card to show you. And this one I did with the Rain or Shine. And I loved how this one came out. First of all, that bunny just makes me smile. I used the designer series paper that's in the Rain or Shine. Can you see? It shines. It's really a beautiful paper. Rainy days are better with you. And I've got my little umbrella right there at the bottom. Look at that gorgeous paper in the background. So that's why I chose the Mango Melody as my card base. Again, I love that the sentiment peeks out, but I have plenty of room to write my message with no fear of it showing out of the pocket. Here I used the diorama dies to just give myself a nice background, but you know, you could use any of your favorite dies here. And of course, I just tied my ribbon with some baker's twine here on the side. So get creative with how you want to design the pocket card, but guys, it really is that easy. Now let's create some bonus cards. All right, we have a couple triangles left. Let's start with this one. We're going to do this one in Rich Razzleberry, and it is a 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And for this card, I really am going to look at the pieces of designer series paper and decide which one I want on this particular card. I want that one with the Rich Razzleberry. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this down. For this one, I'm going to be using the Good Feelings stamp set. And so we're going to create a simple thank you card. And we're going to be doing some embossing in white for that. I've got my Embossing Additions toolkit. I'm going to run my embossing buddy over that cardstock. I want to make sure it's prepped and ready for my sentiment, because using white on a dark color, I don't want any of those, we call them embossing boogers around here. I don't want those to show. So I'm going to come in with a Versamark ink pad and my thank you. Stamp that right down here at the bottom of our card. I can now come in with my white embossing powder and just sprinkle that on, give it a tap. If you have any of those embossing boogers, any of those little strays, we're going to get those away with our brush. I'm going to heat up my heat tool for about 30 seconds. I want to get it nice and warm before I start to emboss and melt that embossing powder. I'm going to open up the card, and I want to keep my heat tool, a good 4 or 5 inches away from my sentiment there, because I don't want to get the paper so hot that it starts to warp. So you want to keep that far away, and you notice I'm just kind of moving it around. You can even come underneath if you want. But what you're going to see is that embossing powder is going to start to melt and become bright and pretty white. That is still warm. I don't want to touch this. Do you know you can smear embossing powder? So make sure you let that cool for just a minute. But I thought this was bothering me. How about you? Does it bother you? So what I wanted to do to mine, I took some silver foil. This is 1/8 of an inch by about 8. And I'm just going to lay that right there along the seam. And do you see how it's going to dress things up? Now I got to tell you, that is an awfully thin little piece of foil. So I'm going to come in with my multi-purpose glue, and what I want to do is I'm going to take the tip of it, and you want to go very, very thin, and I'm just going to run it right. I'm actually using that designer series paper as a guide for the tip of my glue so that it stays right there. Doesn't need a lot. In fact, hopefully that's not too much. A little goes a long way. We are now going to take that silver foil. It's just going to butt right up against the designer series paper, just like so. Let's let that dry, and then we can come inside and we'll snip away the excess, but we want to make sure we have plenty. Now let's decorate the inside. And this is where I just took another piece of that 3 3/4 basic white, and I just stamped a flower. You actually just saw me do this, so I just stamped that again. I didn't put a sentiment in this because it is a thank you card, so I kind of wanted to leave it as is. Now let me show you the other bonus card, again using the Rise and Shine here. I did the exact same thing. I used my pretty designer series paper and I added the silver, but do you notice I stamped some raindrops? I stamped some of those raindrops, colored in my sweet little fox. On the inside of my card, I stamped sending sunshine and good feelings your way, which I thought worked perfect with the rainy day. Again, that's from the Good Feelings stamp set, so that was a really simple one. Again, my little silver foil, and I used some Stampin' Dimensionals there on my fox. So that's your bonus card one. We've got one more, and for this one, we're going to use a basic white thick base, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. Here is my remaining piece, and this time I decided to use the back side of that paper just to change things up. We're going to adhere that onto our card, and we're going to do some embossing on this one, but I'm going to switch things up on you. It's not a Tuesday tip without some great tips. We are going to emboss in rich raspberry ink. Okay, we're going to use a clear because I want to create something with rich raspberry ink. So here's your tip. I've got some clear embossing powder here in my container, and my number one tip for this is have that embossing powder ready to go. Notice how it's on my spoon and it's ready to go. Again, I'm going to take my embossing buddy so I can prep my surface, and you can emboss in any of Stampin' Up's inks, but for this rich raspberry, my tip here is to work fast, okay? We don't have a lot of time for this to remain wet, so I want to make sure that's well inked. I'm going to stamp I'm just so happy for you right here, and very, very quickly, I'm going to sprinkle clear embossing powder on it. Do you see how it's gone dull? Yep, that's because my embossing powder is stuck to it. We're going to come in and heat set that. Isn't that great? Look at that. We now have rich raspberry embossed cardstock. I love that. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring in my original. So you can see I just added my silver foil again, and I dolled this one up. I added some of the festive pearls in silver. I thought those were great. I left the inside of this one alone because I'm just so happy for you. Kind of says it all. So no matter what I want to say to them, what am I happy for them for? I have room to write that. All right, so let me show you the matching card to this bonus card using the Rain or Shine. So there's that gorgeous mango melody that was in the background. This time right here, I just stamped and embossed in white. All right, so white on white. So I did the Versamark and I used my blending brushes. A blending brush in some mango melody ink, and I just added that here to the background, and look at how it pops. Now you might get some ink here on the embossed image. You can take a cloth, a tissue, whatever you have, and you're going to buff any of the ink that could be there on your sentiment that could have, adhered to that. Buff it off, and now look, you have this gorgeous card. I added some more of the silver foil and the festive pearls.
Don't forget, you can grab my free download along with that diagram over at simplysimplestamping.com. And guys, you can order from there as well. If you need the quick link, just look down in the YouTube description. I have a link that'll take you directly to today's post, and you'll find a little blue button that says grab the download here. I'd love to have you print that off or keep that there in your file so you can always go back to recreate the card.
There you go, my friends. Pocket cards with bonus cards. Any designer series paper, any stamps, any sentiments. Get creative with what you have and create these cards and send them to a friend because they are certain to brighten someone's day.
Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you liked the video, would you give me a thumbs up on YouTube? I always appreciate that. And if you haven't subscribed, why not click the subscribe button so YouTube can let you know whenever I'm back with a new video. You can even ring the bell, and then they'll notify you every time I have a new video or a live. I share twice a week here on my channel. I'd love to have you be a part. That's all for me, everybody. Go create something amazing, send it to a friend, and we'll stay up with you next time. Bye-bye.